Hey everybody, you know what time it is. Welcome to This Week in Cleantech, our 15-minute roundup of the biggest stories in climate and clean energy each week. Today is Friday, October 17, 2025. We do have a guest on the horn. Evan Halper from the Washington Post is back to chat with us shortly. I'm Factor This content director Paul Gerke, joined as always by my foil, Cleantech commentator Mike Casey of Tigercomm. Mike, how's that hip holding up?
Dude, it's a first world experience. I got to tell you, I don't know what it would be like to have to deal with this problem 300 years ago, but they have this down to a science. So I'm off pain meds. I'm transitioning from the walker to the cane. It definitely is an appreciation of the frailty that lies ahead of all of us. However, Mr. Gerke.
Yeah.
I want to say there's a story that I'm going to talk about here for just a few seconds that didn't make the top 5. Read it and weep, baby. People hit their functional peak around 60, research suggests. Gerke, you're just a punk, man.
Yeah, I got a ways to go still.
Hell yeah. So you can call me Mr. Peak from now on. It says
Mr. Peak. I like that a lot. Hey, I don't want to steal any of your valor, Mike, but I do want to say that, how you did last week's show, hours removed from a hip operation. I am doing this show valiantly about an hour and a half removed from a dentist appointment. Just a routine cleaning. They were in there scraping away. The first thing that they said when I opened my mouth was, "Oh, a lot of coffee, huh?" Yeah. So if these teeth look sharper and shinier than they usually do, that's because I bravely did the podcast right after a dentist.
You are such a hero, but
some
you couldn't
tough guys on this show.
You couldn't even use a razor, though, bro.
No, I know you like me Olympic athlete smooth, but
what will our 2 listener shout-outs think? Angela Crowley Koch, who runs the Oregon C affiliate, an MBA student at University of North Carolina, Cameron Gooden, who called our podcast, quote, extremely interesting. That must be you he's talking about, not the peaking 61-year-old here on the show, dude.
Extremely interesting could be interpreted any way you want to slice it. And by the way, I actually just spoke with Angela this week, and I didn't know that people at SIA even knew who we were. It turns out that we're water cooler topics over there, man. They're chatting about us all the time.
Don't get carried away. No, she's probably just someone. I like Venmo'd her to pay us like a charity compliment.
You're not supposed to say that on the show.
I only paid her $25. I mean, geez, that's a cheap compliment.
Times are hard out there, Mike. We do want to thank the listeners who interact with us and are a part of the show. As a result, if you want to see something on the show or you just want to give us a hard time, feel free to do so. You can reach me at my email, paul.gerke@clarion-events.com. We've got 5 stories to talk about this week and about 20 more that hit the cutting room floor. What's number 1, Mike?
Drum roll. You only get 3 of these a year, Mr. Gerke. This is your story.
Listen, I didn't ask for you guys to put this in the show. In fact, I didn't even know that it was in the show until I scrolled down to story number 1 in my script.
Yeah, sure. I saw all those Slack messages.
I sent you a link. I sent you a link to this because I thought you might find it interesting. Okay, so
I wrote about it. That's my fault. I linked and promoted you. There's a guy named Paul Gerke. Perhaps you've heard of him. He wrote a piece called Resilience of the Lambs. Some U.S. solar projects are farming much more than sunlight. Now, Paul, it's natural that you go first to promote your own story.
Thanks,
man.
Buddy. I appreciate that. So Resilience of the Lambs. I just want to call attention to that. That's great for seasonal SEO purposes, if nothing else. And I don't know if you saw the image for it, but I got ChatGPT to put a lamb over the mouth of the classic Silence of the Lambs movie poster. And if you look closely in the woman's eyes, you see solar panels reflected. Definitely the coolest thing I've ever had AI do for me. And then I tried to get it to tweak it a little bit, and it started to freak out and was like, this might be copyright infringement. I'm not helping you anymore. So I just took my first draft and ran. But anyway, the story is about some cool agrivoltaics efforts in the U.S. And if you haven't been following this space, there's a lot of companies that have been doing it at scale. Enel North America is one of them. And one of the others is also mentioned, in this piece, Vesper Energy. The way that agrivoltaics is evolving is super cool, Mike, because it's not just parking some sheep and llamas around to eat vegetation around panels anymore. It's custom experiences for these farmers who have these transmission right-of-ways that are allowing developers to come onto their land and sort of of build to spec projects that allow them to continue to raise livestock and farm crops around panels. And those opinions of the farmers matter so much to our larger energy ecosphere, because if they don't want to let you do it, they don't have to, right? And so when we're talking about eating up acres and acres of land for power generation, you sort of have to have a buy-in from the people that actually own the land. Yeah. And I thought it was cool to just talk about some of the stuff that these folks were working on. One of these projects, they create bee habitats at the solar sites, and then this group that's like sort of reacclimating veterans into the world and helping them get on their feet is training them as mentees to be beekeepers at these small apiaries. And Anel told me like this was a no-brainer for us, because like it creates like this opportunity that's super cool, and it's almost no effort on our behalf. It's like, yeah, go ahead, make these sites the best that they can be. What did you think of it, Mike? Did you read it?
I just read the first few sentences and told you I read the thing.
Yeah.
They got a partnership with a badass company called the Texas Solar Sheep Company. Love that.
Yeah.
Last year, they deployed more than 6,000 sheep across 8 Texas projects. The largest known solar grazing agreement. That flock has grown to 13,000, and 2 of Anel's solar projects in Texas, they reserve space for the apiaries managed by veteran beekeepers through Hives for Heroes. Love that. Service organization that provides veterans with training and access to beekeeping. That organization has united over 10,000 members and managed more than 100,000 hives across all 50 states. Paul, story number 2.
Story number 2, not written by one of us. This one from Nassos Stiolanu, Sam Lerner, Irene De La Torre, Arenas, and Sam Joyner from the Financial Times. It's called How Mega Batteries Are Unlocking an Energy Revolution. Very interesting stuff, Mike. What's in it?
Across a place called California, mega batteries store excess power from renewable sources and dispatch it when the demand peaks. In August of 2020, a heat wave pushed the state's grid to its limits and triggered rolling blackouts for 2 days, cutting power to more than 800,000 homes for up to 2.5 hours, raising serious questions about the dependence on renewable energy. But this is what started the boom in mega battery development. California's battery storage capacity has more than tripled to 13 gigawatts of power, with plans for additional 8.6 gigawatts by 2027. A standard 20-foot storage unit typically delivers between 5 and 6 megawatt hours. Is enough to power around 30,000 homes for an hour. Pretty cool. Paul?
Mike, those 20-foot form factors are getting even bigger, too. They're getting even more creative about what they can cram into those spaces. And I know our intrepid producer, Brian Mendez, is chomping at the bit when you were talking about California's grid battery capacity, because Texas it's been firing off so fast in ERCOT that they've actually surpassed California's grid capacity with batteries, doing some wild stuff in there, shaving peaks and preventing blackouts during winter or during the peak summer season, and making everything a lot less expensive for ratepayers during the winter. And that example in California has sort of been followed worldwide too. Global battery capacity is expected to rise by 2/3, 67%, to more than 600 gigawatt hours this year, growing at least tenfold by 2035. A lot of this activity is happening in China and the US. They account for about 70% of those projects by power capacity. But the Trump administration's pushback on renewables has slowed growth a bit, as have tariffs on some critical battery components, because you need to have generation to pair with those batteries. The batteries themselves don't create power. They just store it, and then you can use it as generation later. You may remember not too long ago that severe voltage surge in Spain triggered a blackout in April of this year. The government there now proposing regulatory changes so battery owners can be compensated to discharge and help stabilize the grid's voltage, a lot like what we're doing with virtual power plants out in California right now, Mike.
All right. So our third story is by Ellen Nielsen from CNN. Trump administration quietly canceled the nation's largest solar project. So we haven't really done this before on this show. We are taping at a little after 2:00 East Coast time on Thursday, October 16th. As we are preparing to talk about the story, in comes a news story from Utility Dive that apparently says that Interior has uncanceled.
Yeah, not so
this
fast
project.
is what they're saying.
I I got to tell you, man, I don't know what to make of this.
So I want to just throw out as a caveat too, Mike, I didn't see this utility dive piece until we started taping the show, but I did see some whispers about this yesterday that maybe there wasn't as much of a hard cancellation. If you remember, this story started to percolate earlier in the week because the website for the Esmeralda 7 project just said canceled on it. There was no announcement. There was no press conference that said renewables is a scam. We're going to screw everybody on Esmeralda. It just updated to canceled, and it left a lot of us asking questions like, what the hell's going on? This is a huge project. It's 6.2 gigawatts. It's a collection of 7 different projects that are located around a general area. They could power 2 million homes, Mike, and this is a big, big deal.
Yes.
And Bureau of Land Management just said, canceled. And so journalist types like myself started to ask questions and wonder what the heck's going on. So if you take what Utility Dive is saying and maybe some of the whispers yesterday, what it sounds like it's not explicitly canceled, but maybe going to be reevaluated as 7 individual projects instead of as one mega project. I'm not sure that necessarily bodes well for Esmeralda, because if you remember, the people that are making the permitting decisions on these federal lands go all the way up to the top office. And Mr. Burgum, not a huge fan of giant solar projects. But this one is kind of a unique case, Mike, because it's located in what is more or less desert wasteland. I mean, no offense to the folks that do live out there, but like, it's not like this is arable, crop producing. We need this in corn country type place.
Well, and we don't need more power here in the United States. 2 million homes, forget it. So as Utah's Republican Governor Spencer Cox said, this is how the U.S. loses the AI energy arms race with China.
Amen.
Now, in fairness to Governor Cox, he did go on to say, so good. Solar plus storage is close to baseload power. Okay, that's good. We should keep the projects rolling. Good. Until we have nuclear, gas, and geothermal plants we need. You need to get into the real world, Governor Cox. That's really not what the markets are saying. But Senator Jackie Rosen from Nevada said Nevada is a national energy leader in solar energy as the state with the most solar jobs per capita. And the Trump administration's attack on this industry will have dire effects on our economy, end quote. So whether this is canceled or it's uncanceled, the tumult just isn't good. And I wrote about this as well this week. This is at the same time that China has built a massive solar project on the Tibetan plateau. So we're throwing our future into doubt. They're securing their future. The contrast is just head spinning. I guess that's all I can say, Paul. Our 4th story.
Story number 4 today, Michael J. de la Merced from the New York Times, titled Base Power, a battery-focused power company, raises $1 billion, $1 billion for Base. That just lends some credence to what they're doing, Mike.
Yep, and what we were talking about earlier, and Brian Mendes is happy because we went from California to Texas.
More Texas love.
All right, 2-year-old Texas battery-based company, Base Power, is leasing a huge number of batteries to homeowners that can use it for extra energy as needed. Its software fills the batteries when electricity is cheap and draws it from them when the prices rise, profiting from the difference, passing some of the savings back to customers. Since launching, Base Power has sold over 100 megawatt hours of battery capacity. It's enough to power 33,000 U.S. homes for 1 hour. A major factor in Base Power's growth in Texas is deregulated energy market, which lets customers pick their power providers. The company also recently qualified for a state program that lets battery fleets combine their power and feed it back to the grid. Paul?
This is the way it's all going to go, Mike. And I love to see it happening in Texas because, you need the legislation in place to allow stuff like this. And in a lot of states, these markets simply don't exist. And in many that they do, they're not profitable. But in Texas, you could at least make a little money on this stuff. You may have remembered Base Power. They raised $200 million earlier this year, but now being revalued at an even larger valuation in the neighborhood of $3 billion. They're going to use that money to build some battery factories in Austin. As you know, we've got limited battery capacity in terms of manufacturing here in the States. They've also partnered recently with that home builder called Lennar, and they're imagine buying a new house that's got a state-of-the-art battery system in it, where not only are you getting a little kickback when you discharge to the grid, but you've got that built in. It's a resiliency option. And as things get tougher and tougher in terms of climate, having stuff like that is more and more of an asset to the homeowner. Makes that home even more valuable. All right, Mike, we do have a guest.
Why don't we call it a payment instead of a kickback? This is a time.
Hey, wait, is there a negative connotation with kickback?
You clearly live in New Jersey. Okay, our fifth story is by returning guest Evan Halper and Chico Harlan from the Washington Post. The real winners of Trump's attacks on clean energy aren't American. Evan, thank you for coming on. I'm glad you're here. I guess I'm going to ask you broadly. Can you make sense of what we're doing from a national strategy standpoint? I can't. I don't know that Paul can. Your observations, please.
Hey guys, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me back. This is a really tough one. I mean, we go out of our way to, not just talk to people like you, Mike, to talk to people who, are big into oil and talk to us about, LNG exports and kind of the value of the administration's policies on that. But even when we ask those sources, okay, does this make sense? Does it make sense to actively go after projects, that are in development, that are about to be on the grid? I mean, we're talking about that Nevada solar project before. And nobody I talk to outside the administration says, yes, this is a good idea. As you know, we're at this time where there's just not enough power. We just had a story yesterday. It was the lead of the homepage all morning. People were really interested in it on just how much electricity prices are going up, so much so that it's really infected the races for governor in Virginia and New Jersey, where they're just kind of grasping for explanations to voters, like why there's not enough energy and why your prices are going up and why you're facing these energy shortages. And so when you talk about AI, when you talk about any of this, and, your points about batteries before also, with those prices coming down, the cost of wind and solar is just, this isn't even a matter of climate anymore. Like, our story really focused on how all these other countries are doing these things because it's the cheapest form of power. It also in a lot of other countries where the Trump administration thinks, okay, we can pressure them to, abandon their targets for clean grids and abandon their emissions targets, and then they'll buy more oil and gas for us. There are some of those deals going on, but those countries do not want to be beholden, particularly China, particularly India, where all this growth is happening, and they don't have their own reserves of oil and gas. They want to build as much solar, as much wind, as much of anything other than those things as they can, as quickly as they can. And, one of the things we pointed out in the story is that there is going to be, if you look at the figures that came out from the IEA, the U.S. is looking at a really big deficit. We talk about trade deficits, and this is something that the Trump administration is obsessed with. We're going to have something like $150 billion trade deficit in renewable technologies and clean tech. At the same time, China is just going to dominate this. And, this is the energy that lots of countries are using. So it's hard to understand why. I mean, you can understand on the one hand why the U.S. is trying to push fossil fuels with this administration, but why they're trying to stop these projects at a time we're really facing like an energy emergency it's hard for all of us who are covering this to wrap our heads around.
Evan, I've got so many things I want to say. First of all, thank you for bringing up the New Jersey political ads, because I am beholden to them and I get angry. Like my wife will hear me yell at my TV and be like, that is a lie. Like, straight up hard, bold-faced lies about renewable energy and its impact, especially wind, on New Jersey electricity prices. Like, it's like you could Google it and you would find out immediately that all of this is just propaganda. But like, I think most people don't. And I see those ads so often that like you start to question what you even know about the industry. And I'm glad that you mentioned too, just the fact that like this is a space where like we kind of need everything right now. And it's not like even the renewable types are like beating their chest and saying we need to stop all this gas development. I don't think I've talked to a single renewables person in the last couple of years that has taken that tone. If anything, they've accepted the fact that natural gas is a bridge to get us where we need to go. But I'm not sure we're going to be opening up coal mines. I say all that to say this, Evan, who are the real winners here? Is it just the people lining their pockets?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as we can see in a lot of what this administration does, they like retribution, they like revenge. And there is this feeling in the oil and gas industry, as you both know, that during the Biden years, during the Obama years, that they felt like not only were they being sidelined because they weren't moving fast enough to decarbonize, they weren't making other plans, they weren't transitioning, but also that they just felt like this was political retribution from the left, that they were being punished, they were being targeted. I mean, this is the view from inside the oil industry. And so, my understanding is And my former colleague Josh Dawsey has written about this. That Harold Hamm brought all these people together, in the oil and gas industry in Oklahoma. I think as the new administration was coming in, and they talked about, okay, these are all the things that these clean energy people did to us, that the Democrats did to us, and now it's payback time, and we are going to get them back. We are going to ruin their projects. We are going to make sure that our projects are dominant. And, that's sort of the mindset. Everything's a fight in this administration. Yeah. And so even though you have all this energy that they really need, 6 gigawatts of power, that could be a lot of data centers right now. That could be a lot of AI. It's more important that they just put this industry in its place and pursue the path that they want to pursue.
I'm going to do something I have never done in 2 years on this show. I'm going to swear. Harold Hamm is completely full of and I'll tell you why. If this industry that follows this show were so politically powerful it could have done something to oil and gas, it wouldn't have been able to have things done to it. This is a 3-decade-old industry. And this idea of Harold Hamm, that somehow that this is an industry that aligns itself with liberals and Greens, first off, it's nonsense. I live this every day. I can tell you it's complete nonsense. The second is, they are the most powerful industry on earth. They got Gavin Newsom to move from being a climate hawk to an all-of-the-above guy. This is nonsense. This is like a professional wrestler saying that a second grader beat it up. It's disgraceful and it's silly and it's complete nonsense, but it makes for good propaganda. And I would just say, we should note, I am pressed to see a single time in American history when the federal government has weaponized its tools to crush a small, beneficial industry. You could say, well, it kind of went after the tobacco industry after decades of, pressure from consumers, but that was a well-resourced, mature industry. It was a malignant one. This is crazy. You're doing this out of this nonsensical ideology, and I'm pressed to find any time in American history we've ever seen something like this. Has anybody ever even offered a parallel?
Yeah, no. It's they're putting their thumb on the scale for an industry in a way that doesn't even make sense, like you say, because you can have all the oil and gas that we can produce, and you still need these renewable energy projects. But if you look at the new numbers that came out from the IEA right as we were writing that story, it was really the forecast for the amount of clean energy that's going to come online in the U.S. was cut in half, right? And I'm trying to remember if it was a 5 or 10 year period. But if you're an oil company and you're looking and thinking your days are numbered, and we're going to be replaced with, or your oil or your gas is going to be replaced by solar and wind or whatever other technologies, and then that forecast comes out. For you might be looking at this as, okay, well, there went a lot of the competition. So, yeah, yep. It doesn't make any sense if you're a policymaker, and if it's on you, if the grid's going to fall apart, if it's on you, if there's not going to be enough energy to beat China in this AI race. But, perhaps some people in the fossil fuel industry who are looking at wanting to prolong the amount of time that we're all driving gas cars and we're all using their products. Those new IEA forecasts, which are based entirely on policy by this Congress, this administration, you're looking at probably a few more years of profits.
Paul, you want to do the last question?
Oh, I think we've already exhausted and just ranted each individually about how we have gripes about this whole thing. Evan, I guess I would just, is there something that didn't make the piece that you really wanted to add that lends a little extra to this that our listeners could glean from you?
Yeah, a voice prominent in the piece was Andrew Forrest, who's an interesting billionaire from Australia, and he's got the biggest mining company. It's called Fortescue in Australia, and they're leaning hard into green. He canceled 2 big projects in the U.S. One was a green hydrogen facility. The other was a battery and other kind of new innovations plant outside Detroit, and it's I think 800 I'm trying to remember how much investment it was. It was a lot of investment. So one of the interesting quotes he had that didn't quite make the piece I thought was interesting was that he was really taking tech companies to task. And he said, you're out here, you're talking about the climate, why are you not standing up to this president? Why am I having to come in here, sailing on a ship that runs in ammonia to, come to Climate Week in New York and be the one who's speaking up? Like, why is so much of corporate America not actually taking a stand on this and just sort of going along? And that is something we've been tracking closely. And it is, interesting to see how, these companies who had so much in their impact statements and talk about this all the time, they're just, they're so worried about getting the energy they need that they're just sort of going along with it, and they're not talking about emissions anymore, and they're not even talking about how damaging it is. I mean, you had to have the Utah governor come in to talk about this project. In Nevada, you don't even have CEOs talking about it, and that's kind of an interesting dynamic.
Evan, as someone with a foot in corporate America, I just want to say I've learned over the years that you can just go into those PowerPoints that have the mission statements and just change them. You could just take the renewable stuff right out, and it said 2030, it's 2040 now. I don't know. I mean, will anybody notice? We notice, but I think you're right that it's not all about those numbers and figures and goals anymore. It's more about the immediacy of everyone else's. These other three hyperscalers are gonna kick our asses if we don't get the power we need.
Paul Gerke, we got to go to our Cleantech of the week. I do want for the record to note that I'm the one who diatribed. You two journalists just analyzed and taught. It's like, I want to be clear. Because I was the one opining. That's my job to commentate. Evan just reported and analyzed and responded to questions. Just want to be clear. That's Cleantecher of the week.
As the record shall state, this week's Cleantecher of the week, Rishan Wong, former CEO of Reddit, a site that I doom scroll frequently, and CEO of Terraformation. Terraformation just rolled out its latest product. It's a subscription-based model. What isn't these days? This model allows individuals to fund reforestation, which is way cooler than most things I get charged for on my credit card every month. It's for the cost, roughly, of a streaming service. Check it out. Rishan Wong, our Cleantecher of the week.
All right. We want to thank our wonderful producer, Brian Mendez, Claire Queer, and Alex Peterson for gathering these stories. And Paul Gerke, are you a dad yet?
Not yet, brother. Due date is the 21st. So if it doesn't come by then, it's coming next week. So you might not catch me on Thursday. You might get my cohort, Jeremiah. But I'm hoping to do some shows during the break and be able to spend some time and share that joy with you while I'm away from work.
Congrats.
Thank you, sir. And one more hat tip to Evan Halper for joining on This Week in Cleantech.
Great story, Evan.
Yeah, great
really
job. And thanks for the context,
Great
too.
being here.
Yeah,
right.
and if you like the show, please subscribe, leave feedback, share your story suggestions, whatever you want to do. I'm not your dad, but I'm about to be someone else's dad real soon, as Mike pointed out. That's a recurring joke on the show. We just brought it full circle. Be good, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care. See ya.